Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Kellz, aka Special K, back at you again with the next episode of the Culture Marauders podcast, and it's brought to you by Poddex. Poddex. This is one of our sponsors, or actually our only sponsor. And Poddex has been rocking with us for a little bit. They are, cards and things like that are for creators, other podcasters, and you can use these tools for Facebooks, YouTube videos. StreamYard, like I'm using here, anything that you can use to create content. And right here I have my first deck. This is the one that I've been rocking with. I like it a lot. This is from the What the Heck deck. You also have other things such as the episode deck, interview decks, What the Heck deck, and then another volume from the interview deck. So good stuff. I like to throw out a random question to my audience out here and listeners out there. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle this up. And anybody, feel free to jump in and answer this when I go ahead and throw this question out. So this is from the What the Heck deck from Poddex. So here we go. All right, my question is, What the Heck deck? If you were a villain or a criminal mastermind, what would be your calling card? Who wants to take it? Yeah, what would you be known for? Like the Joker does like goofy like joke shit and Riddler riddles and stuff like that. What would be your calling card?
I like mind control.
Mind control? All right, so mind control right here. So for me, I would leave like gum under somebody's seat, because there's nothing more annoying than like sitting there and you're like, something nasty like that. That's what I would do. I would do something foul like that to somebody. So anybody else, what y'all got?
I don't know. If I was a superhero, I'd want to be invisible, probably.
So invisibility?
Yeah. Just mess with people.
So mine would be teleportation.
Teleportation? So that'd be your calling card, a teleporter, stuff like that. So, all right. Dang. So I got what you got, Rondo?
Yeah, it's interesting. There was a comedy special I watched a time back where this guy would break into your house but steal nothing. He would just kick the door open and leave it there and walk away. So for days you'd be looking around thinking like, what did they steal? Everything looks normal, like it's
like a smooth criminal, right?
Yeah, you gotta do something just to mess with people for like a couple months.
I see you, Joe. Appreciate you tuning in. And then so here we go. Karina Garcia, Tatiana, Scooter Girl's sister, said a black cat card. You drop it at the scene of a crime. So all right. Cool. So there you go, right? So that's what I'm talking about with Poddex. These are fun. These are, real simple things to throw out there, for all the content creators out there. If you're struggling, it's definitely a good tool to have. And, so what I have to offer, all of y'all, is the special VIP code from your boy Kellz. If you go in there, you snatch up some of these content decks and stuff like that, throw them in your cart, and type in, as you can see on the bottom, Marauder1. That's MARAUDER1. That's good enough to get you 10% off. And then from the Culture Marauders to you. And go ahead and get those decks and start creating. So this is episode 25. So it's hard to believe that we're at episode 25. We're rocking here on June 3rd, 2020. Brand new month, brand new issues. As we all know, we've all been watching the news. I'm calling this episode an Inconvenient Truth. And I'm not talking about climate control like Al Gore. I'm talking about the state of our world right now and the state of our nation. And as you can see, it's extending even further out from that. We got protests and everything happening right now in Tampa, where we're at, Las Vegas, where Tatiana's at. Rhonda, I know you're seeing some stuff. There's stuff, overseas, Paris, London, so it's everywhere. So marauding with me today, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about racism. So marauding with me today, I got a motley crew here. So I got my wife sitting next to me. I got Karina Kelly. I got Tatiana Garcia. I got Tatiana. Sorry, Tatiana, I spelled your name wrong. Tatiana Colorbrad Lockhart. And Rondell White, who's also jumping on for the first time. Everybody here except for Rondell, I already know either I'm married or I've worked with Tatiana Garcia or I've served with Tatiana Lockhart. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to jump on, and I'm glad to meet you, Rondell, and get you here marauding with us as well. So, as always. If anybody's looking to jump on, or you got something that you want to comment on, or you want us to maraud on, I've already seen some comments come through. Just hit us up and we'll flash them across there and get involved. So that's all I can ask for. So here we go. All right. So We're gonna start off kicking it right in with the world protesting racism after the death of George Floyd at the hands of ex-Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin. So it's been a rough week. It's been a little bit over a week right now, and it seems like while the emotions are still high, I see that we're looking at more peaceful demonstrations right now. What is your take? Not only from everything that you've seen, but the direction that we're heading in right now. And Tatiana Lockhart, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it. Oh,
you can't be surprised. So go ahead.
I know. No, I've really learned a lot from this specific situation because it's taught me how many people around me are so close-minded to learning new things and to changing. And it's just shocking. And that's why I've been like blowing up and I've like become this advocate or activist or whatever, because I'm like, no, you guys don't understand, so I'm trying to do my part because other people, they can't understand it. They don't want to do their part. So that's why I feel like I have to do extra. And then especially too, as a white person, white people understand other white people better. So that's why I think it's important for white people to talk about the issue amongst themselves versus a colored people to try to explain the issue to a white person, because a white person would be like, well, that doesn't happen to me, so I don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like it's a different mentality. So, and it's hard. It's really hard to get your point across when people think like that.
Okay. All right. I'm going to circle around. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get the ladies first. I'm going to save you for last. Karina, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I'm biracial, so I'm half Black, half Mexican, and I have multi-race friends. And I have noticed lately, just trying to talk about what's going on, just feeling emotional, but trying to have a conversation with people who've kind of been the opposite. They don't want to talk about it. And what I've noticed with some of the white coworkers that I work with, and they're my friends, they don't want to talk. It's uncomfortable. And I think in order for things to change, you have to talk about something that's uncomfortable. And I'm definitely not, I just want to have an open conversation where we can have an open dialogue about it, and I can share how I feel. So I've been finding some people, but it's been kind of discouraging that a lot of people don't want to talk. There are different races they feel like they can't emphasize or relate, and you can't emphasize with this. You can also, have an opinion and just, form your opinion and speak, respectfully to others. So.
Okay. We lost Rondell, but we're gonna try to get him back here in a second. Tatiana, Scooter Girl, go ahead.
You're gonna call me that the whole podcast?
Yes.
All right.
No, I'll stop. I'll say T1 and T2. T1 and T2. Go ahead.
Who's T1?
You.
All right.
T1, go ahead.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I kind of agree with your wife. With what Tatiana said as well, but I found that this whole situation, it's just very difficult to speak about. And when you're speaking about it, I post about it a lot. I know you saw my posts on my stories. Yep. But speaking about it, sometimes people don't even want to engage. They just leave the conversation completely. Or I find that when I am speaking about it, they'll focus on a completely different point than what I'm trying to make. And I find that infuriating when I'm trying to get a point across or kind of teach you and, explain where I'm coming from or what I'm seeing or what I feel. And you're kind of just dismissing it or focusing on something that literally has nothing to do with the point I'm trying to get across. I think that's been the biggest struggle. And when you and I spoke, it's infuriating, honestly. You're just angry all the time. So I think this past week, people of the Black community have been facing a lot. They're just angry and sad and hurt. And me, I'm not a Black person, but I'm a minority, a person of color. And I just feel devastated about everything that's happening. But I think your question was about how the protests are changing and how they're moving to more peaceful kind of protests. And I think that's great. Peaceful protests are obviously what most people would want, but I can't say that I don't agree or that I go against the people that are rioting. Like, I understand where they're coming from. I don't say that I want people to destroy things, but I understand that their anger is pushing them to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's just how their trauma is coming out. So that's kind of where I'm at with that situation.
Okay. Well, at first, and this is really bothering me, and it's bothering me more so than the other situation that's happened. Not saying that they're less important, But it's just a matter of just being fucking tired, man. Just tired of the same stuff. And our brothers and sisters, and I say that in a broad sense, brothers and sisters, regardless of color. But you know, we see black faces, black lives being taken, and nothing is done. You know, we'll talk about it for a little bit, and like I said, you know, until the next distraction comes up, and then it goes away. You know, so for this one, it just bothered me so much, and I was just really irritated with it. And she, you know, she can attest to it. She seen how it's affected me, and you know, she even came back and said, you know what, you need to step away from it, put the phone down, stop watching the news and stuff. And it was good because it kind of made me pull back a little bit, and instead of being, you know, getting on my brother Malcolm and wanting to stand on the soapbox and like, all right, hey, it's time to go. I can't do that. I can't do that because I don't want my kids to be like that. We don't want our kids to be like that. You know, we want to be better and look at it from a place of anger and a place of hurt. But where do we go from here? Where do we start the conversation and try to you know, fix this and or at least come to an understanding where, you know, this isn't right. You know, it's not right to do this to anybody, not just black people, to anybody, and that's women included. You know, so it's just taking a step back. I'm glad, you know, the cop was fired, and you know, he was just a news update before us coming on. They upgraded his charge to second-degree murder, and then they arrested or also brought charges on the other three ex-officers for aiding and abetting Chavin. So it's, you know, it's coming around. I'm surprised it took this long to do it, but something is better than nothing. So
Yes.
that's what I got.
Still the fastest police arrest ever. Even though it took a while, it's still the fastest police arrest. So
all right. What you got, Wendell?
Yeah, you know, sorry for the disconnect right there. You know, I'm having some network issues, but yeah, it's interesting. I still don't think I don't think it was fast enough. I think he should have been charged and arrested a lot faster. And the reason I say that is, if I murder someone as a public citizen, I get arrested, I get charged, I go to jail, because that's how the world works. If someone is given the authority to take away your constitutional rights, such as your right to liberty, to freedom, to property, they can take away your constitutional rights. How is it that person isn't held to a higher standard? And when they break that trust that they have with the community, with the oath that they make in their office, in their role, how are they not charged and convicted with more haste than a public citizen? And that's the part that just doesn't sit well with me. I'm very happy that the four of them you know, have been arrested and they've been charged. But now at this point in time, I think the next conversation is that enough between, you know, for a public citizen to just be a public citizen gets charged the same way a police officer gets charged, but one has the ability to take away your constitutional rights? No, I think the sentencing just needs to be fundamentally different.
Yeah, and that's where it's broken, right? I see your point exactly. It's, you know, if you commit a crime, you're locked up like that. We're going to hold you until we can prove different. But for them, it's a different playbook, right? And maybe that's just a law enforcement playbook. I don't know, but I definitely see the disparity right there in the fairness and in the treatment of a private citizen versus an officer. Yeah.
It's systematic racism. What everybody is talking about. When we watched the Breakfast Club and the podcast, and they were speaking to Rush Limbaugh, yeah, and how he was, you know, this, you know, systematic racism, and he said, no, there's not. It doesn't exist, and it exists in almost everything that we are. It exists in our law enforcement. It exists in our housing discrimination. It exists in education, and it's one of those things that we still have not been able to master and figure out a way for them not to systematically, you know, be prejudiced against African Americans or minorities, and how police officers or people with wealth still get off, or, you know, very easily compared to a minority.
The reason why white people don't understand that is because they benefit from it.
Good point. You know, it's like if you're winning, why do you want to do that? You know, so
I watched this movie yesterday, and there was some quote. I'm gonna fudge it, but it was pretty much saying, like, a fish doesn't know that it's in water because that's what's normal to them. So that's their environment. That's what they live. That's what they know. They see it every day. they don't see anything different. They don't know anything different, and they don't care.
Yeah, if you're in your own bubble, you're right. It's hard to see anything outside of that. So, all right. So I'm going to jump to the next topic. All right. Hey, before I move on, is everybody in agreement? Hey, those guys are shitbags and they deserve to be locked up. Hey, all right, let's move on. All right, cool. So President Trump's address on Monday, right? So this is a big shit show to begin with, right? Like just the way it went down. You had peaceful protesters, walking around and not causing any problems. There's always the potential, right? We don't know, but we didn't see that. And the cops cleared these guys out so Trump can make his speech. I'm not going to speculate, but I would have been surprised if some nonsense had happened. But if something, hold on. But a fish knows they really like water. Thank you, Jeff. Yes, thank you. So, but back to what I was saying. It's it was messed up, and how when Trump came out and gave his speech, right? He didn't mention anything about Black Lives Matter. He's yet to even say the word. Black Lives Matter. He referenced the Second Amendment before even saying anything about the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech and people, able to gather and protest and stuff. Didn't even mention anything like that, but he did reference the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, right off the jump. So that right there tells you where this man's mindset is, and where you could have squashed a lot of the tension and everything going out there, and maybe call for unity and maybe take a different approach. I think he just totally just assed it all up and made things worse than better. So I'm gonna start with you, Rondell, on this one. What do you think about his address?
It's interesting. I think that we need to understand the type of president that we have in the office, and that's I don't think anything he did was out of character. It's very consistent. It's brand consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not shocked and in awe about anything. I'm surprised he wasn't more flagrant about his remarks. Honestly, a President Trump saying that you should, shoot protesters seems like a tempered response from him. Considering the type of individual that he is. In the midst of the crisis, the first thing he started off with was he had a 10-minute address talking about the relationship with China. And I sat and I watched all 10 minutes of it, wondering if he was at any point in time going to pivot to the current situation that individuals in the country are going through. The fact that he tweeted a few moments earlier that day that sharing the sentiments of a racist police officer in Miami, and he did not acknowledge it. So I don't think he's ever going to acknowledge it. I don't think we should expect that. He didn't acknowledge coronavirus is a real thing.
That's true, right?
Yeah, we're here. If we're being honest about it, we're living in a post-truth society. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we should expect truth from our president, and that's just the baseline for now.
All right.
For now.
All right, T1, what you got?
That's funny.
Come on.
I knew I was T1. You said it was
T1. Let's go.
Yeah. No, I just agree with Rondell. I mean, I don't expect anything real from our president at this point. I've never really expected that. I mean,
no.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really have much to say about it. It was just kind of, that's how he is. And I just kind of brushed it off as that's just how he is and he's wrong. I don't really pay much attention to his beliefs and what he's saying because I just feel like he's always wrong. So, I mean, that's just how I felt. I don't really have much to say about that. I just think he's wrong.
Okay. All right.
I just got the whole T1. That's from Terminator, isn't it?
Kind of, but touchdown one and touchdown two. All right. I'm sorry, Family Waters. I'm sorry.
It wasn't shocking at all. The only thing that I was very shocked about is, and I'm still shocked about, is the number of followers that he continues to have. even though we all know everything that he's doing is wrong, the continuous followership and what is it that attracts you to him? Even the people in his house who haven't betrayed him yet and that continue to go along with you holding the Bible upside down looking like Hitler. You got people, you're calling in the guard and you're letting people shoot. When are people going to stand up and say, no, I'm not following this anymore? And we have that conversation a lot, and it's like, well, people have a lot to lose. They got to afford, they got to keep jobs, and they can't, there's health insurance, and families. But when are you going to stand up enough to say, you know what, no, what you're doing is wrong, and I'm not going to stand for it. So that's the most surprising thing to me, is that there's so many supporters and followers still.
It's interesting because I understand your disbelief, but it's important. Like the thing that makes America beautiful is the thing that also is the challenge with federal legislation.
Exactly.
We're all so different. The needs of the person in Arizona are not the same as the needs of the people in Florida. If when someone says we need access to guns for sport in Arizona, even though I am very much for gun legislation, I think people in Arizona should have guns. I think that makes sense within their context. Now, in New York, do I think people should have guns? No, because it's a different context and because the people are different. And that's just one very specific issue. So when you look at President Trump having so many supporters in the midst of something that we all can agree, we all think it's a black and white issue. It's either you're being racist or you're not. There are people who genuinely share his beliefs.
Oh yeah.
That is his base.
And it shouldn't be shocking though, because that's what got him elected, and so it shouldn't be shocking.
I don't know. It's still shocking. I was Karina. Like I had people posting on my page. They don't believe that they deployed tear gas for him to go do his photo op or anything, and they're just like, oh, he's a good Christian who's trying to just give his message and support our people. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, this is on my feed of people that I know, and I won't name names, but I mean, people that I've known for like almost my whole life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No.
You watching the same news I am? Like, I don't get it.
But you can also look at it almost as a great awakening, because you're seeing these people, and not saying they're bad people. It's just maybe they're not informed or whatever, but you're starting to see what's in people's hearts, and that's scary as well, and disappointing, because people that you probably held as friends and acquaintances and stuff, you kind of have to look at them in a different way, unless you can totally separate politics and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're looking at me or yourself or whatever as a person of color, and they're supporting somebody who has no regard for a person of color. So, it's just one of those things. Tatiana, T2, go ahead.
So as far as seeing everything as being like black or white or racism or not, or it has to be like good or bad, like there's no in between, like that's when it comes to situations like this, it's different for every situation. So I feel like to people that say like, oh, it's not a race issue, or oh, it's just a police issue because white people suffer too, the question shouldn't be is if it's racist or not. It should be how much racism was at play. Was it like 5%, 75%? You know what I'm saying? Like there's different levels to it. So people, they only want to see it one way. So even on some of my arguments, like I try to see things from both sides of the story because I agree with bits and pieces of both sides, And as far as like Trump, when he was talking about the issues going on and he's focusing on the protests, there's also fake protesters out there that are causing all of this destruction. The real protesters aren't the ones doing that, and a lot of people refuse to believe that too. I'm like, you can't lump all black people together, you can't lump all protesters together, you know what I'm saying? And everyone has to be in a box. You have to fit a certain criteria, or else people just judge so hard, like they categorize everything,
Mm-hmm. So I'm also, and I don't know if anybody saw this earlier, but the Secretary of Defense, right? So Trump during his speech, he said he's enacting the Insurrection Act of 1807, which allows him to use active duty military to police, basically, right? So even the Secretary of Defense was like, dude, you're tripping. Like, we can't do this shit, basically is what he said. He didn't agree with it, and he says that that act should only be used, and for lack of better terms, a break glass just in case type of thing. Like if all shit hits the fan and we don't have any other options, that is the only time we should use that. And he's not on board with this. And he wasn't even aware of the photo op. He said, he accompanied him across the street, but he thought, he was going for prayer or something. But he said when he saw it was a photo op, he just stepped back. He didn't want any part of it. So, our nation's leaders, right? The leader of our armed forces, our nation's defense. When he's not on board, there is a serious problem in the White House. And Trump's got to get it together. I keep trying to say and keep trying to believe, something, he's going to just pull back the curtain one day and say, all right, y'all let me get away with this shit for 4 years. Are you guys really ready to pay attention when it comes time to vote? But I don't think that's the case. I would hope that would be the case, but I mean, he's just so far gone, and it's getting worse and worse. And his crave for power is really, really starting to become a problem in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get why there's so many loopholes in our Constitution and in our laws where allowing him to be able to get away with it this far. I think we failed.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, he's not doing anything illegal yet, because in DC, because DC isn't a state, he can do that with the police and stuff like that. Now he's going to have a lot of pushback when he starts messing with these governors in these other states, because that he can't do. But in DC, he is it. So I mean, it's just he's finding these loopholes and he's manipulating and twisting things to work in his favor, and there's no way to really stop it. So yeah, I don't know.
Interestingly enough. Yeah, it's interesting. I do believe that there's legislation that should change, that should, effectively limit the powers of a president. However, I don't think that's really at the heart of why the nation is in the state that it is, and why he's getting away with the things that he's getting away with. It's a matter of the moral fabric of the senators and the Congress and the Congress people who look at his acts and say partisan politics are more important than truth. Partisan politics are more important than the Constitution. Partisan politics are more important than our moral obligation and our oath of office. And a good example of that is, just in my personal estimation, when we looked at the confirmation hearing of Brett Kavanaugh, objectively, the majority of people did not feel comfortable putting someone into one of the most powerful seats in the land. To be frank, I think President Trump is very much within his rights to assign a Supreme Court justice, sure. But if we have this mountain of evidence against this person and we don't feel comfortable, the senators should have said, we don't feel comfortable with this individual. Find us another Republican person who will do the exact same thing, who doesn't have that background. But they put all their morals and their scruples to the side and said, it doesn't matter. He's already on the floor. Let's just put him in.
Well,
and that's what's problematic.
Look at this. We could even do that with the person who said.
We cut out.
Justice.
You cut out, Curtis. Repeat it.
Sorry, I got to pay my Wi-Fi. But so like I said we couldn't even do that with who we elected as president, to hold him to a higher standard. So how do you expect us to do that with Supreme Court justice? Maybe Rondell dropped out. Can you hear me, Rondell? Well, I guess I kind of made my point, but I mean, I don't know. It's a mess. Rondell, you still there? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you. But yeah, it's just, I think just our here we go. Here we got a comment from Jeff Hunt, host of the Jeff Needs Help podcast. He said, "How do you feel about Mr. Trump always hiding behind the American flag as people who defend?" So I'll say it, starting off as a vet. I think it's cowardly. I think, if you're gonna say what's in your heart, just say what's in your heart. Don't use the flag to justify what you're saying. Be honest and transparent, because you're honest and transparent about every single thing you say for the most part. But you know, and we know what we're getting from you. We're getting hate. We're getting, you know, divisive action. You know, nothing positive. We're getting all that from you. So just come on out and say it, but don't use the flag because you don't represent what this country is about. That's what's right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree exactly what you said as far as hiding behind the flag. He's actually hiding in the bunker that's not legit. The bunker that's never been used by any of the other presidents unless there's
terrorist
a
attack
or a nuclear war coming. So he's the only one that's been hiding out in this. So I don't know if he's hiding behind, but at least he's hiding behind whatever. Twitter, and that's another thing. He tried to.
Yeah, he tried to. All right. T2, as a former service member, what do you think?
I don't know. I try not to get too political because when it comes to like the Supreme Court and all the congressmen, I'm just going to be honest. I don't understand all of that. I never was taught politics, so I just try to not get too into that because I do not want to talk about anything that I don't know about. You know what I'm saying? And I will.
Our president should probably listen to you too. So, you know, don't talk about things you don't know about. So.
Exactly. So I'll keep my opinions where I think I, you know, can back them up.
Well, and even just from a civilian standpoint, what do you guys think, Rondell and T1? What do y'all think about, you know, him using this as a prop per se?
Well,
T1? No, T1. I was going to say T1. You got it.
Really? I agree with you, Curtis. I just think it's cowardly. I don't feel like you should try to justify all your actions behind the flag, saying it's American, kind of pushing that agenda. It's just a cover-up. So, I mean, if you want to say how you feel, say how you feel, but you don't need to use a cover-up and hide behind something. And I've always thought that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree 100%. Yeah. I mean, you both of you have fought for this flag, so you know, like you know the importance of the flag. I again, just like T2, I don't speak about things I don't personally understand. But there is a battle that I'm drawing a blank on because again, clearly I have an accent, so I'm not super American. There's a battle where I believe the soldiers were doing everything they can to hold this flag up. If you're familiar with what that looks like, I can't remember the specific battle, but that's how important, you know, it was for the Stars and Stripes to still be there. I think it's in the anthem. It's there. That's how important the flag is.
Yeah.
So when someone says, "I am going to twist the meaning of this flag to fit an agenda," I think that's problematic. Doesn't matter if it's a leftist agenda or rightist agenda. It's problematic.
Yep, I agree. All right, so we got a couple more topics to get into, and I want to get into you know, panel discussion as well with your own individual topics you want to touch on. So I'm gonna hit this one real quick, and then we're gonna get to the next one. So your thoughts on the protesting curfew? This welcome, Jeff. This one, it started out right, and it's still right. It started out peaceful. Let me start with that. It started out peaceful, turned violent, and for a number of different reasons. And then the curfews were enacted, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. But so for example, I got a good buddy out in Cali. Shout out to Van Guerra, aka the Drunken Stoner. He posted a video of him just walking downtown LA, him and his girlfriend, and they had changed the curfew in LA, and they were caught outside of it, and they were just walking down the street trying to get home, and they got hemmed up. They got put face down, and they got detained and separated, and they got put in a van or a bus or something like that. Some guy pissed on himself, and so it was like piss and stuff on the van, and they just got separated and without their phone and dropped off in different parts of the city. And luckily, you know, neither one of them got hurt. But this is the stuff that's happening, right? Like you're just rounding them up for breaking curfew when they didn't even know that the curfew even changed. So I think that's problematic as well. That, you know, you're not being clear with you know, the directives and stuff like that, and it's messing people up, and you're gonna find like a lot of trauma and a lot of problems are gonna stem from this if they don't get a hold on this really quick. So I'm gonna start with you this time. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. We were actually watching a video last night, and people were sitting on their porch, and the cops started coming down the road, and they started shooting. I'm telling them to go inside, and they're like, "What? What's happening?" They started shooting at them.
Yeah, rubber bullets. Paid rubber bullets, just firing at them from the
They're
porch.
like screaming and running inside, and I was like, that is inappropriate and it's wrong. I mean, people are not doing anything that's illegal, and they arrest those ones that are. And I get the curfews, and of course, people who are terrorizing buildings and businesses who just reopened due to COVID and are just trying to make a living. I mean, obviously, protect those buildings, but going down to people's neighborhoods, that shouldn't have been allowed at all. Why are you going down to people's neighborhoods if they're walking their dog, or what difference does that make? And holding out in regards to, I don't agree with the police brutality.
All right, Rondell, go ahead.
It's interesting. The curfews, I think curfews make sense in the broad context when dealing with certain issues. When the issue, however, is police brutality, why would increasing the interactions between a population and the people they're protesting against be the right solution? Because if the curfew was enforced by a neutral party, then sure. But what you're effectively incentivizing officers to beat up Black and brown people because they're out. Because that's effectively what we're protesting. Mm-hmm. If I am in the streets and I get beat up by a police officer on a regular day, people are upset about that, and that's why we're protesting. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to be out at 7 p.m. and get beat up by an officer, and it's now legitimized.
Exactly, right?
That doesn't make sense.
I'm on a clock, man. I got to get this in before it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. We've legitimized it. It doesn't make sense. It's the wrong thing. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a certain window where we can rough you up. So exactly. Good point, man. I like that. All right, T2, go ahead.
With the curfews, I agree with what he said that now is not the right time for that. But for curfews in general, you can't do that to people because that's exactly how he said. You're putting a law out there for cops to enforce even more of their laws that they wouldn't have done before. So and then it's like, we're not kids, man. We're all adults. Granted, all adults are children in their minds, kind of like how Trump is too, just has like a child mindset sometimes. It's like, look, we're like, come on, a curfew, like what? We're not.
You know what? I understand it because it's protect the public. I get that, so. But I also hear what you're saying. If you're doing the right thing, why? Right? It goes back to the mindset in the military. If one messes up, why are we all being punished? So it's the same idea, but in this case, it's to protect people because people are getting messed up out there.
I know, but if you're a lawbreaker, whatever, you don't care about the curfew. You're still gonna go out and you're gonna rough up all the businesses and do your writing. That's not gonna stop them. No, but then my husband said, what else? What other options do they have? They can do a curfew. If that doesn't work, what are their other options? And I was like,
exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, just to pivot back on, because I'd love to hear, just to get your perspectives on it. You said that the curfew was put in place to protect people. Protect who specifically? Because if just based on what I've been seeing, it seems as though protesters are walking through the street and then they're getting attacked by police officers. Mm-hmm. And that's what that looks like. It's the interaction of those two forces that cause them to have some type of outlook, right?
And even if they're trying to leave, they're getting blocked in.
Yeah. So who's it?
I think it's to protect not only to get people off the streets, right? And then also protect businesses. Yeah, they're gonna get there's a high probability during a time like this. Stuff like that's gonna happen where there's gonna be vandalism and stuff like that. Right. But when you have people off the streets, you can police it, and I hate to use that word, you can police the streets a little bit more. And there's nobody on the street, so you can actually keep watch and just kind of keep it to where it's not so violent or the potential for violence. Because if you're out after that, that you're doing wrong. That you're not supposed to be out if there's a curfew enacted. So I can kind of see both sides, but if you're asking me, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I get that.
So here it is. The ideal of the curfew is to protect the people, but it's not. It's harming them. Yep, Jessica, you got a good point there. So I saw Tatiana T1, your sister, posted a question. She said, "I've seen a lot of back and forth online concerning the riots and destruction of public property. What do we all believe, what do you all believe the appropriate response for workers, property owners that are faced with riots while going about their day-to-day lives? So what should be the response of business owners?
I think that's tough. I don't know who it was. I saw an article where a business owner, I think he was a Black business owner, his business was destroyed. And he was like, if it's for the cause, I'm okay with it, because he understands what people are going through and why they're rioting. I don't think I have a good response on how they should be reacting. I mean, I know if I owned a business, I would hope that it wasn't looted or something happened to it. But again, I also understand where people are coming from, and I don't know, it's just a sad situation, and what everybody's experiencing. And I think I understand both sides, business owners and the protesters. So I don't think I have a real answer on what they should be doing.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe you might have one to do because he has another comment. So let's see. Also, both sides are going to continue to get angrier, and a lot of videos people are also surrounding the cops. I fully expect people to lash out when cornered, both cops and protesters. You're right, and it's pent up tension and anger, and it's just a perfect storm, right? It's a perfect storm of emotion and just everything that's happening. And I'm just, I am all for the movement. I support 100%. It is good to see it happening, but I just don't want, unnecessary loss of life. And that's a weird way to put it, because it is going to take sacrifice, right? For this to really, for change to really come about. But it's just, I don't know personally if I'm ready to see people continuously die for this. That's just me personally. I don't like that idea.
Yeah. It's tough though, because when Tatiana T1's sister just asked the question, what's the appropriate response? If we just take a look back, when Colin Kaepernick kneeled during the anthem, people said that was an inappropriate response. Now, one could argue, sure, let's hide behind the flag on this one and say that that's the inappropriate response. So that's peaceful, but not the right time, sure. So then people, if we kind of go backwards a little bit further, you had the civil rights, marches. People were marching and they got beaten up by police, of course. They were peaceful, but they definitely got bludgeoned in Selma. That's real life. So peaceful, okay, cool, that happened, sure. For Ahmaud Arbery, people did the running to kind of show solidarity, and nothing changed. No one heard that. Clearly that's not the solution, because George Floyd got killed after, and Amy Cooper felt emboldened to weaponize the police in New York because while she was breaking the law. And then now we get to a point where someone says, I've tried all these peaceful alternatives and I don't know what the right alternative is here. Let's just shake things up and let's burn everything down. And I think the response is understandable, because I think it makes sense. I don't agree with it. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Right. I also don't think you should be burning down small businesses, community businesses, family-owned businesses, things like that, because they are not the people that, they may not care about you and the cause, but they're not changing the policies per se, and burning down the business is not going to help the situation. Yep. It's the large organizations that contribute to systemic racism that are quiet during this time. When Gucci is putting out blackface parkas but profiting off of black bodies and black culture, but they're super silent during this time. Go burn Gucci down. I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying, if someone told me that, I'd be like, if you're gonna burn something down, maybe that. But don't go burn down a person's barbershop. That doesn't make sense. So it's interesting. I would never condone violence. I don't agree that people should be looting and the people who are looting, I think they're opportunists. I don't think they're part of the movement in any way, shape, or form.
Agreed.
But it's the property part of it. Burn all the property stuff, because if we don't care about black bodies, then why should we care about material possessions?
Well, but and I'm gonna piggyback off that, because we're not too far from a time where a black person was considered a possession, right? Yep. So I mean, it's just it's a modern spin on it. So that's just kind of the way I look at it.
But what's wild when you think about it? if we were possessions, we might have been valued more than we are as free. Isn't that kind of wild?
And that might have been, that might be heartburn from people, like, oh, it's not like this anymore, so kind of like disregard you completely. If we can't use you
Yeah.
the way we want to use you, just disregard you completely. So
Which is problematic.
yeah. All right. So I'm sorry. Did anybody else have anything before me and Rondell monopolize this whole question right here? I'm sorry.
Well, there's protesters, like some of the people burning down like the smaller businesses and stuff. A lot of them are being paid to do that. There are groups that are organized that are paying the protesters to commit chaos, and then there's the good protesters out there that are like, stop it, what are you doing, knock it off, and
It undermines what they're doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me rock. Let's push to the. So all right. So I asked you all before you came on. We're gonna everybody just have a topic or something they want to discuss, right? So I'm gonna throw it out there. So this is a panel discussion topics, right? So let's start with T1. What do you got? What do you want to really, really delve into?
My topic, I guess, is more personal. I've been kind of pushing whatever I thought needs to be out there on social media and kind of trying to educate people. And I kind of got into, I'm in a sorority, we're Latina based. So we're having lots of discussions. We have a lot of, we're multicultural membership, so we have a lot of Black members. But obviously we have a lot of Hispanic members. And something that myself and the Hispanic members are noticing is just that in our Hispanic culture, we just have this built-in racism that no one ever really addresses or kind of takes care of it or changes it. So we've kind of been trying to address it. I know somebody shared a post yesterday in Spanish so that all of us from the sorority could share it, because maybe we don't know how to articulate ourselves best in Spanish. So it's just things that we're thinking about. And I kind of started having this discussion as well. And I don't know, I just find it so upsetting, and it's been very difficult speaking out with people. I've spoken to my family about it and other people in the sorority, like I said, and it's just, when we're young, and maybe you don't know actually, but like when we were young, we were taught to kind of be afraid of Black people in a way. So if we would drive in a Black neighborhood, we'd be like, oh, this is a Black neighborhood, lock your doors. Or things like that, where, you're young and you don't know, and you hear this stuff and you're like, oh, okay, like you do whatever you're being told. And as you get older, you're like, wait, why are you saying that? That's wrong. And I mean, I know that like if you look at, demographics and like maybe you are in a neighborhood, generally neighborhoods with minorities have more crime. That's just what happens because they're poorer neighborhoods. And I know we've lived in, we live in great neighborhoods now, but like in the past, maybe we have done that. So we've been exposed to that, and they're just generalizations that are happening. But I think now, or even back then, it was time to just start changing that narrative and not teach that and pass that down. So I know my cousins and I, my sister, you saw her comments, we share the same similar points of views. We don't agree with kind of grouping people like that, kind of assuming that we should be scared of Black people, we should be racist against them. So, there's not much to say about it. I just think we need to continue the education, pushing the Black voices, the narrative that they're trying to push. And that's really all I've been doing. I just find it frustrating when I get, like I said earlier, I get dismissed or kind of brushed off. Somebody tries to pick a point that's not the point I'm making. It's just difficult to deal with. And that, I think, is the biggest frustration. I feel like I'm a minority as well. I'm Colombian and Puerto Rican, for those of you that don't know. So my Colombian side, we're very fair-skinned. I'm actually darker than most of them. But my Puerto Rican side, they're from the Bronx, from New York. They're the stereotypical thugs. They're dark. I'm in the middle, obviously. So it's just heartbreaking for me, like, to see, like, one side of the family, we have more privilege because of our skin color, and then the other side, we're treated poorly just because of where we're from. I'm sure everybody knows the Bronx is not known for being the greatest city ever. The people there are not known for being the greatest people ever. It's just demographics and where you come from. So that's just my battle this week. being a minority myself, I think that we should be standing with the Black people. We shouldn't be against them. We shouldn't be saying statements that puts their narrative down or pushes them down. Things like, all lives matter. People don't understand why that's bad. I've been trying to explain that. Or, people saying it's not all cops. Like, you're kind of missing the whole point of the movement and what we're trying to teach. And that's just kind of where I've been this past week.
Okay. All right. Rondell, what you got?
Actually, I'm just gonna quick comment on what T1 just said. It's interesting. I'm just gonna start calling you T1 from now on. Probably that's gonna be a long thing. So the thing what you've described is what scares me about. It kind of bleeds into my topic, but is the thing that scares me about where we are at and how we get to that metaphorical mountaintop that MLK was talking about. Every community in the world, for the most part, has colorism, where the darker you are, the worse you're perceived. If you're in Hispanic cultures, then people would look at Dominicans as less than Puerto Ricans, as less than Colombians, as less than people from Spain, and that's real. If you go to Africa, it's like that sometimes. You have people who are extremely dark in some parts, and they're just like, oh yeah, they're too dark. You look at India, you had the caste system based on how dark you were. If you look at within the Black community, if you are high colored or light skin, you're seen as prize, versus if the darker the berry, we now have to make up our own narrative and say, no, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, because we, as dark people, we're trying to reclaim darkness within our own dark community to kind of say that we matter. And that's tough, because these are mentalities that exist. It's ingrained because of a post-colonial kind of mindset, if you think about it. I'm sure you've been told in the past, like, why don't you straighten your hair out? Your hair's too curly, whatever. And again, that goes back to colorism. Black girls doing straightening their hair for their, to look like the standards of beauty that exist in the world. Colorism, like it's tough. It's in every single. Jessica has it right. It's in every single culture. So it's the part that scares me about the movement, because I had this conversation earlier today. When do we? And this is my panel topic, if you will. When do we know that we're at the we don't have to protest anymore? We've made it, because I don't think there is an end goal yet, and a defined end goal. Because let's just say we are able to get all these cops. The cops are now charged. They're arrested. Cool. Let's just say they all get sentenced. Do we now stop protesting and say, okay, now let's go back to everything as usual, business as usual? No, we can't. What's next? Please.
So I had the same thought, and I think it was with you I shared it with. No, it was actually with my sister. So I think we take small victories, like the end of slavery, right? Small victory. In the grand scheme of things, it's a big victory, but we just kind of just about, okay, we're free. What do we do? Okay, live life as we kind of want to. Civil rights movement. Okay, well, now we're not segregated. Now we're considered equals. Okay, well, cool. Let's rock on. Life's good. Well, no, it's not. We kind of took our eyes off the ball and didn't follow up and keep pushing, because they're only going to let us have what they want us to have. And then, that seems great compared to what you just came from. So I think we got comfortable and we didn't really push for more. And I think until we don't know the end. What is the end game, right? Like, what is enough for us, right? What is going to be the end point where we're like, you know what, this is it. But ask yourself, are you ever going to be happy with where you're at in life, or are you going to always continue to pursue and build and want to learn more, do more, experience more? So I don't really think there is an end game, man. You just keep going.
And it's interesting, because I would agree with the fundamentals of continually wanting more. But the strive for equality has never been about more. It's always just been about equal. An LGBTQ community individual isn't asking to be like the supreme, like ultimate version of like a human being. They're just saying, I just want to be equal in the eyes of everything, in the eyes of the law, and I get married to someone my marriage is equal to their marriage. That's just what it looks like. They're not asking for anything more. And it's the same thing with like like the current situation. I would just love to be able to live in a world where genuinely, and I don't want to make cliche here, where MLK's people judge me by the content of my character and not the color of my skin. I want someone to be like, yo, you suck because I suck. Not because of my skin, but they
Which
genuinely
doesn't, guys. Rondell doesn't
despise.
suck.
Yeah, I appreciate it, but that's what I want. I want someone to tell me, yo, like I want people to not talk to me because they don't like me,
Right.
not because they don't like the color of my skin,
Yeah.
not because they don't like my community. That's what the end game looks like in my mind.
Something you can control, not versus something you can't.
Yeah.
Yes, something you're very much in control of.
Well, people say that everyone's equal, but we're really not. There's a difference in being equal by law and being equal in society. And it's a different mentality, and people don't understand that because, they have the same rights as us. Okay, and how is that working out?
Yeah. And Jeff Hunt just came on and said it's time to remove these people from power. So, I mean, you got to change.
Yeah. Vote.
Yep. All right. So T2, what is it that you want to throw out there?
I really just wanted to debunk a lot of the accusations that a lot of white people are making, because it's hard to change someone's mentality, because you have to think that this is a cultural problem. Because when you look at white people history, we come from, like Columbus, taking over, and we, taking and dominating all these countries. Like we're winners and we get everything we want because we've got all this power. And then you look at Black history, and it comes from slavery and oppression and stuff like that. So we grow up with completely different mentalities. So now you have to teach white people to change that and teach them that like white privilege is a thing, and show them how it affects them, because you can be passively racist and people just don't know it. They'll say, like, well, I'm not racist, but no but anything. You can't put a but after that. No buts here. You know what I'm saying? No, that's not okay. And then so one of the thing is white people will literally make every excuse possible to justify why it's not a race issue. And I'm like, okay. So they come up with all their statistics. Statistically speaking, no, fuck your statistics, okay? Because listen, statistics are so biased, and if you've never been taught about how statistics works, if you have one number off, or if your equation isn't equal, you'll fudge up the whole freaking thing. So it's like, I can pull a statistic to support my point of view as a white person. You can pull a statistic to support your point of view as a Black person. So how is that fair to people just, throw up all these statistics? And it's like, why do you have to do that? Why can't you just be like, oh, there's a race issue, let's talk about that. Not let's make all these excuses for why it's not a race issue, but then they'll turn around and say, oh, but I still believe that racism is a thing. I'm like, what? You guys are contradicting yourselves here. You know what I'm saying? It just blows my mind. Like, you make all these excuses for why it's not a race issue. Okay, fine, whatever. If it's not a race issue, whatever. You can't change everybody. Fine. What are you going to do about the police brutality issue? Are you going to advocate for better training? Even if you don't think it's a race issue, there's other things you can do to help, embrace change and call for change.
And that's just like Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He donated $1 million to help fund, I think, police training. So that was released today. So yeah, Dak Prescott. I mean, Cowboys won't pay him, but hey, you're doing the right thing, Dak. Appreciate it. So what do you want to talk about?
I think you all make really good comments. I'm glad that you're all able to come onto the podcast. I've got really good points, and I'm really listening to all of you. And definitely can relate to everything. T1, Tatiana, I definitely half black, half Mexican, and I don't agree with the just Black Lives Matter, because I am half, and I've always had to choose one or the other. And when I was younger, it was, well, you look Black, so just select the Black box. And I'm like, then I disregard my mother and my whole other side of the family, who was Mexican. came across the border. I have lots of family who came across the border, legally immigrants, American citizens. And so I don't disregard either. And I believe all lives matter. Even within my culturals, and my sisters are black and white. I'm the only one black and Mexican. My sisters are black and white. My brothers are all Mexican. For me, I think all lives matter, and I think that needs to be pushed more than just black lives, especially minorities. I work in healthcare. This is another topic about statistics and things. And so I work in healthcare, and I'm a public health. I've been doing it for 13 years. The answer to the question as far as when did we stop? Well, as a public health person, there's inequality in so many different areas. Housing, we got wealth, we got poor, we got education where inequality exists. It will never end in a single layer. And there's we look at all lives, and we serve the community as a whole. And so we do look at demographics and how to raise the bar and put everybody at that median. Why is it that the minorities are still lower? Why are they the ones not making as much money? Why are they the unemployment rate so high compared to the white counterparts? And so to answer the other question, I don't think it will ever end because we have so many items on our agenda, and it doesn't need to end because we need to make sure that we get all of those. And to go back into as far as what else is just the systematic racism that I had brought up before, and what exists among that, and trying to make a such change. And I think going forward, we ask ourselves, what can we continue to do? And I think T1, you've been doing something amazing, working with the sorority group and trying to answer those barriers. I remember growing up, funny story. I was like, for the longest, I was raised mostly with my mom and my mom's side of the family, Mexicans, and our friend of my grandmother's lived a couple of houses down the street. And I always called her Lowetta. So when she came over one day, I'm like, "Oh, hi, Lowetta," and that's not her name. That means a white, and she's Mexican, but she was very light-skinned, and so blue eyes and blonde hair, and they called her Lowetta. And so those little terms that didn't really come to my attention because they never treated me any different. But as I got older, I'm like, you can't say Lowetta, you can't say Lowetta. You can't say things like that. And I was like, what do you think about me? I'm your family. They're like, oh, you're your family. You don't have to do that in that group. And I think that is wrong, and that definitely needs to be addressed. And a lot of the time, they just don't know. They don't understand. And being able to educate people and letting them know as far as maybe that's not appropriate, to go without saying. And I think that's how we move forward, is enlightening, educating people, and continuing that after these guys get served their justice, these cops, and we continue, we don't stop.
You see why I married her? That's smart.
Yeah, kind of like how Rondell was saying, where does it end? I think once people start to embrace our changes rather than to weaponize them, that's when I will have hope. You know what I mean? Because yes, there are differences in our culture, but why is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. Let's learn about them and educate each other, and experience different cultures, and then so it's funny because I had mentioned to my husband, I was like, everyone just needs to fuck everybody so everyone's the same color.
What the?
That's what, and he's like, no, even if everybody's the same color, people are always going to find a reason to hate each other, whether it be against religion or, anything else. People are always going to find a reason to hate each other. But when it comes to the color of your skin is different than your religion, because the color of your skin has nothing to do with your belief. You know what I mean? Like that, it shouldn't affect that. And you can't compare the color of someone's skin to other things that, people will try to compare racism to other things to try to justify it. You can't compare some of those things, we really have to educate each other.
Yeah.
Well, T2, your comment just won the show, so congratulations. So I mean, we could ride on this whole topic for like another hour or so, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to throw up the last topic, and that topic is, how do we begin to heal? Oh, Rondell, look like you're chewing on this, so I'm going to hit you first. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I don't really have an answer, to be honest with you, because healing is gonna involve a lot of different things. When we talk about care in general, within healthcare in general, you usually treat the the root cause of something rather than just suppress the system, suppress the symptoms. Um, so like when I think about America a little bit, America is sick to its core, and healing will come if I think everyone sees that we're going after the the root causes while addressing the symptoms. If we feel like as a nation that we're doing that, because like your wife brings up a phenomenal point, which is, racism exists in everything. There are disparities that exist in everything, you know from healthcare, because healthcare outcomes for Black and brown people are different than those for others. When Tatiana talked about, when T1 talked about locking your doors in a minority neighborhood. Sure, the reason there's more crime there, hypothetically speaking, is because they haven't been given the opportunities to be able to thrive because of systemic problems. So I don't think we'll heal until everyone feels like we are actively doing things to address the symptoms and going at the root of it. Until then, I think we're honestly going to be hurt people. To be honest.
Okay. All right. 2-1, what you got?
No, I agree with Rondell. I don't know that I can say that we're going to heal. I mean, you would feel better if you feel that you're being heard. Things are changing. You're seeing some type of action. So I agree with that. I saw a post that it's going to take generations to heal. And I think I agree with that. It's going to take a long time for everybody to feel safe, to feel okay. I think that's the biggest thing. If you feel safe, then you're okay. I mean, you're healed. But if you don't feel safe, then you're not going to be healed, and that's just the reality. If you're worrying about somebody else, like your family, I mean, like I told you guys, I'm Hispanic, so I feel like I have privilege. I don't have to worry as much about my family just because they are lighter skinned. But I'll quickly share like the one story that I share with everybody just because I feel like it really shows the difference between white people and other people. I mean, my sister, she's on the chat, she's watching, but we went to school in Tampa and she drove a very nice Nissan Altima and she was pulled over. And the question that they asked her when she was pulled over was, "Did you steal this car?" And why is that the first question that you're asking someone when they're being pulled over for some traffic citation or whatever? Like, that makes no sense. Similarly, my friend, Brian, he was pulled over for this, for something about his car, and same thing, asked, "Did you steal this car?" And that's just the reality of, being profiled. And I always think, had they been Black, they would have just been pulled out of the car. Before they even got to explain themselves, they would have been pulled out of the car and then asked, "Did you steal this car? Whose car is this?" And kind of interrogated. And that's how we are right now. So to say that we can heal, it kind of just seems far-fetched to me. There's a long way to go before we can even start to heal, and a lot of changes to make.
Okay. All right. T2, what you got?
So I think when it comes to setting goals and accomplishing goals, you have to do them in little steps to see progress. And this is, you guys kind of had said this before, like it's going to take generations, and we can't solve like all of America's problems, all of society's problems in our lifetime, but we can start to make the first steps towards progress. And I think that the first steps are going to be towards education. Teaching it better in our schools, because these issues, they run deep, and you really just have to educate people and get them to understand it. And then once everyone kind of starts to understand, that these issues that they exist, and then, maybe like a couple generations later, they're like, okay, this isn't fair. What can we start to do about it? So I think we need to focus on making that first step. And so for me, and especially for white people, because they're not going to understand it, and there's people in my age that are still racist, and you can't do anything about it. And people like that, they're followers. So the easiest way to change them is to change their environment and the people around them. And that even goes to say, like, with celebrities, like, you know, their little tweets and whatnot. Even Lil Wayne, he had made a comment about, like, well, what's your tweet gonna do? Well, it's spreading awareness and it's teaching other people. And when you're a celebrity, people will follow,
Right?
yeah, they'll follow the same thing that they believe because they look up to them. So once you start changing those environments, then all of the rest of those followers will be like, oh yeah, okay, then they'll start to change. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't change every person, but if you can, you know, reach out to a few people, they'll reach out to their few people, and it kind of keeps expanding. And yes, it will be very slow, but like I said, like you have to take the baby steps, and it's gonna be a very slow process, and we probably won't live to tell the people, but we have to do something in our generation while we're still alive. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So,
I agree. And Jessica's question, I don't know how you heal deeply rooted generational trauma. I think we're still figuring it out from our grandparents. You know, those of us that are still fortunate to have them. I mean, I can imagine the stuff that they've seen and gone through. So that's passed down generationally, and we don't even know how to figure that out, and they don't. So it's tough. And Rondell, you're right. I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but to T2, to your point, it's education, right? We have to change the way we teach, to change the ways that we approach, you know, the topic of race and all that stuff, and make it to where it's more of a learning experience versus kind of like, all right, we're just going to throw this on you and hope it sticks. No, make it fully immersive and let people fully understand, you know, what each race and each culture has to bring to the table. And, you know, we're not going to have this perfect utopia. You know, we're not, and that's fine. But respect and understanding, I think that's a good start. So.
mm-hmm.
No, I think you guys are on the right topic, and I definitely applaud you too. And you know, for like you said, for speaking up, because it does take a lot. I approached a person that I work with, and I was just upset about everything going on, and what she said was, "It's been like this forever. It's not going to change." And I'm like, with that mentality and not even trying, it's not. And those conversations need to continue to happen. Whether they're comfortable or not. And that's what I said. I applaud you for talking amongst your race and being able to try to help and enlighten and educate about equality for everybody. And I think healing definitely takes a long time, especially for things that are so deeply rooted. But I think we need to celebrate some of this is my mental health, put my mental health on, and celebrate some of the small milestones that we've been making so that we don't get so dragged into depression that we can't keep going, and celebrate little small victories. One thing I saw today, and I was like, in the midst of everything going on, it's like somebody standing up and saying something. The whole Snapchat and how they're not going to support racial inequality on their site. That was a huge step to make for the corporation.
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah, especially against Trump. CNN and other news stations that have spoke up against inequality. Those are small steps. You're identifying things and you're not allowing it to continue to happen. And so being able to, like I said, celebrate those little small things and not get so depressed with the movement, and then continue on forward with the mission to enlighten and educate. I thought T2, she brought up the education in schools. You're right. I hated learning about the slavery portion because it made you feel uncomfortable as an African American. It just all you did was show me bloody pictures, and you didn't explain like how we grow from this.
It needs to be taught better, and it starts with our kids. Yeah,
and to be able to, that was a great comment. It starts with them, teaching them about racism and what is wrong, and they don't want to have those conversations. But that is an awesome point to bring up. I don't know if education school system, but that is something.
Yeah. And that's where it starts, right? In education. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and bring it on home. All right. So, final comments and thoughts. We're gonna start with you, T1. Go ahead and what are your parting shots?
So now that we're all kind of being advocates and posting a lot of social media, like yesterday we did Blackout Tuesday. I think it's very important to challenge each other to learn more and push each other to learn more. I know actually Rondell's post, it kind of challenged you to go and read something or watch something or learn something more and post about what you're actually learning and what you're understanding and have those conversations. And then my uncle actually posted something similar. So I went and watched a Netflix movie, the 13th, I believe. And I knew all of that stuff because I learn about that stuff. But it was interesting to watch a documentary and then reflect on it. And I went through and I followed more Black artists, some other people that are kind of pushing the Black agenda, the Black Lives Matter, things like that, so that I could be more educated. So if I'm going to share my voice and use my platform to elevate Black people and Black Lives Matter, I need to do my part and educate myself and continue to learn and kind of reflect on my experiences and their experiences. So I think that's just my major message for everybody. Continue to learn, use your platforms to share, to uplift this movement, to uplift Black people and Black voices. And that's really where I'm at. And that's what I hope everybody should be, is doing.
Okay. T2?
I think I really stand strong on the education part. And I think we need to normalize this conversation, because we were able to have this conversation just fine. A lot of people are not having this conversation. And people who refuse to talk about it, they're never going to learn. So even just talking about it more. You may not think that that's doing a lot, but it really is. So, like you said, focus on the baby steps and embrace those changes, because they will trickle down and they will make a change down the road. We may not see it now, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't lose hope. So.
Okay. All right, Rondell?
First and foremost, please do not go burn down Gucci. That was not my call to action. I just want to throw that out there. I think that's important. Not an advocate. Not an advocate. Yeah, it's out there. But yeah, definitely not an advocate for that. But what I am an advocate for is just two major things. One.
He froze.
Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah.
Am I still frozen?
No, we got
it.
Oh, yeah. It's two major things. It's I would say it is critical to understand the political systems that exist around us. I know T2 was telling us about how you're not going to speak on Congress and senators unless you understood it, and I think it makes sense, definitely, because there are too many people who don't understand it, who are giving out opinions that aren't consistent with how that operates at all.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for everyone to really understand not the legal system, but the political system, because ultimately it is the tool that shapes our nation. Whether it is for criminal justice reform, whether ex-convicts have the ability to vote in elections, whether it is how Teacher talked about education, how funding is done for communities, because funding comes from tax dollars from the property taxes. And if that's the case, then poor communities will always have terrible schooling. And that's just kind of what that's going to look like.
Right.
But the only way you get that changed is by knowing how that all works and who's responsible for changing it, and actively going to the poll and voting them out and telling them, listen, either you're for this or you're not. And if you're not, you've got to go. And don't just, and also I think this is also important, don't just bring yourself to the polls. If you care about something, mobilize and get a bunch of people. So that way, when you tell a politician, you're not doing this thing, okay, cool. We got 50,000 people in the back here that are about to go vote against you because you're not on this team. And see how people change their tune. I think that will fast track us to, getting to where we need to get to healing, to be honest. But yeah, happy to be here, man.
All right. Well, I know how to drive a bus, so I can, gather up some people. And we can make it happen.
Let's make it happen. I'm with it.
Good point. Very good point. And you?
Yeah, great point, Rondell. And that was my point. A friend of mine actually has been going on, and she's just been posting on Facebook, things you can do. And she said, if protesting is not your thing and you don't want to get involved in that, here's a list of other things you can do. And one of the couple of things that she actually wrote was getting involved in organizations. If you don't know anything about politics, well, then it's better to learn from other people who might know a little bit more. But getting involved in a local organization, your homeowners association, the schools that your kids go to, and being a part of those laws and that legislation. They have school board meetings that you can be a part of. One big thing in schools is diversity, and school zoning laws actually keep certain populations out of those schools, so don't allow diversity. So just being a part of that organization and being able to vote and know like, hey, you're cutting out some of the, this population that brings in the Hispanic population into our schools. Being able to speak to those things. And like I said, homeowners association, Bible study groups, just any organization that is in your community so that you can help enlighten other people, anything that you're already a part of, I think will help make a big difference. And one thing, actually, if you're in Tampa Bay area, there's a call on Thursday that's actually going on, and it's a Zoom webinar with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Forum. And what they're talking about is the Hillsborough State Attorney, and they're going over different laws that are kind of in here. It was pretty much the different attorney candidates that are discussing police accountability, deep incarceration, pretrial detention, and other topics with the police department. So if you're available to be on that Zoom call, let me see what time it is. It's actually, I'll post a link, and it's on June 4th at 5 p.m. on Thursday. And just being a part of that and being able to see what's coming next and how you can get your vote out is one way. And I challenge you guys, if you have social media, you have a lot of followers, post something, look into your local community, see what's coming up in the community where people need to be involved in. Like I said, it's a lot easier to do right now because everything's on Zoom. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can still get your voice heard and get votes in.
All right. So for me, I'll wrap it up. I think the best education I've ever had in my life was serving in the military. It's a collection of different people from all different walks of life, and you are thrown together in a crappy, stinky, like bunk, right? Like basic training, and you guys got to figure it out together. So Tatiana, I mean, it sucks, but you learn, right? You learn about people. She's had troops who had never seen a person of color before in their life until they came into the military. 18 years old, and there's still people like that. So it's just it's such a learning experience, such a great learning experience, and you learn how to interact with people, where they come from, what walks of life are they from, their religious background, the things they value. And I've taken that, in my journey throughout my life, and I've applied, just common sense, just how to interact with people. And when I walk into a grocery store, or when I walk, just like where we work, Tatiana, T1, like I don't see color, and it's a nice thing, but right now and where we're at in our culture today, it's kind of making me see it a little bit more, and I don't like that. I don't like having to not necessarily pick sides, but like sort in a way, and it's just, I just hope that we can come together. Like I said, it doesn't have to be full agreement, but at least have respect and a direction on which way we're going to go on how to fix this, because we got 3 kids, and I'm terrified of what's coming for them if we don't get this shit together. So I appreciate everybody stepping in. T1, T2, I appreciate y'all coming on. I know you were a little apprehensive, T1, about coming on, but you chant through it. Thank you. And T2, we go back. I'm so proud of hearing the mother and woman that and everything that you're doing and stuff like that. So thank you so much for coming on, Rondell. It's our first time talking, man. You're a fellow marauder. I appreciate your insight, your educated voice, and everything that you bring to the table. And of course, my lovely wife right here. Thank you for supporting and coming on, and also and lending excellent content and value. So with that, let me give a shout out. Right, we'll go around. Who you want to give shout outs to? Go ahead. You go first.
Oh, okay. Well, you're in here, so I can't shout you out. To my family, it's very diverse, like I said before, and just my friends, they're very diverse as well. And thank you for the support, and thank you for not only for the show, but just in life in general, and being able to trust that you will speak up and do the right thing for all of us. And I appreciate all of your concerns during this time when you're doing your job. So.
All right. T1, what you got? Who's your shout outs?
I didn't know you were going to do this. Well, I guess I'll shout out my family. A lot of the people that have been commenting and, voicing their opinion in the chat, those are my family members, a lot of them. So I'm really happy to see you guys all here. You're engaging in the conversations. You're not dismissing what people are going through. I know I've been like messaging them individually. Like if they post something that I feel was really good or really educational, I'm always like, wow, I really appreciate that. And I let them know that. So I'm just really proud of the family members that are, taking that initiative, learning, kind of taking the time to be in these kinds of talks. And that's my shout out.
All right. Rondell, what you got?
I'm gonna do a generalized shout out, and of course, shout out like family and friends. But more importantly, I want to shout out all the allies, broadly in all of the different communities. The only thing that differentiates this movement from the civil rights movement, from every other movement that we've done in the past, is that we have so broad of a base when it comes to support. It's not about your religion, or if they like, we have people saying Black lives actually do matter, even though and they know that it doesn't detract from their life mattering. That's not, they get it now. And it is the first time, in my lifetime, and I'm sure a lot of other Black people's lifetime, even prior to this stream, President Obama had his talk from 5 Eastern to 6, and he said that this is the thing that differentiates this moment, is that there are so many diverse people on the streets, people getting injured for this, and they're not even Black and brown people, and that's it's a beautiful thing. So shout out to everyone.
All right, T2, what you got?
Pretty much the same, thanks to my friends who came on and watched this and supported me, and thanks to you for putting all this together. Honestly, I really do think more people need to talk about it. So, and everybody else, thanks too, because I agree with everything that you guys have said. And I definitely have some educating myself to do. And yeah, so just keep sharing the word and doing what you feel is right.
All right. So my shout outs, I got a list, so hopefully nobody hungry. So so my shout outs, I like to give, like I said, a thank you to everybody who participated. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, and you will be judged whether you care or not. Thank you for coming on and like I said, lending your voice. I want to still give a shout out to all the teachers out there, all the healthcare workers, because COVID isn't on, right? So all the the healthcare workers, my public health professional over here, and still doing the job, suiting up every day, still taking care of this while we're still sorting out some other things in life. The essential workers still, putting in the work, the service workers out there, still the people still taking the trash and all those things, the unsung heroes of the world, the military who are really caught in a really, really messed up place right now. My heart goes out to you, and I couldn't imagine, the decisions that you have going through your mind right now, but Kellz is with you. Also, the listeners, the people who support the show, 25, episode 25, I couldn't think of a better way to do it. This is important. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation respectfully and get some good information out there. So, I thank you, and I'm going to go through my long list of plugs. So, if you want to follow us, the Culture Marauders, hit us up on Instagram at _culture_marauders, Facebook at the Culture Marauders, and then if you got anything you want to maraud on, aka explore, hit us up at theculturemarauders@gmail.com. So, this was fun. This was fun. I think it was necessary. It was fun, and hopefully next time we get together to discuss it, we'll be talking about it's a celebration and all the things that the good things that we hope to come out of this. They happen. So, with that being said, everybody, please be safe. I love all of you. Thank you. I love all the listeners and followers out there. Thank you for your support. And big shout out to those out there pushing and protesting. Keep up the good work. Be safe. Do it smartly and make a difference. And from Kellz, the Culture Marauder, I'm going to leave you with one culture, one blood, one love. Peace.